early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
We'll take a look at the agriculture sector. How well has President Tinubu fared in that sector? What are the results that have been achieved by this current administration? Well, to look at this with us and talk to us about it, so let's say the person who will be marking the script submitted by President Tinubu in that sector will be Emmanuel Abushson, who is an agriculturist and is also the executive director of Pan-African Institute of Business Management, the CEO of TREMMA Agro Services Limited. He joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, Abushson.
Good morning, Blessing.
Congratulations on Nigeria having done 25 years of continued democratic rule. Let's have this assessment done. Over the past 1 year, there have been several interventions done by the current administration, and when subsidy was removed, there were various palliative plans that the president rolled out that will be done as measures to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. Now, in your assessment, over the past 1 year, what are the critical changes that you've seen happen in the agricultural sector in the bid to improve food security in Nigeria?
Okay. I will not say much has been done, and I cannot say it has been done. I would say we are making progress in the right direction in terms of mechanization. I think the government is doing their best in acquiring machines, which is going to enhance productivity of smallholder farmers, which again is a progress in the right direction. And also in terms of palliative to cushion the effect of the first subsidy, the inflation that Nigeria is currently experiencing. I also say they're doing fine. And in terms of tackling security, which are a major challenge in the agricultural sector, because most of the areas that we have this insecurity insurgent areas where agriculture is a predominant primary activity, occupation, and I would say we're making progress in the right direction. However, we have more to do, but we're making progress in the right direction.
All right, Emmanuel, good to see you again.
Thank you. So,
all right.
I don't know if you can hear me.
The last ministerial briefing, the Minister of Agri, Kyari, disclosed that in the last 1 year, the ministry has injected over 300 billion naira into the economy, focusing on dry season farming and also addressing the issue of food security. As an expert in this field, how will you react to this kind of news, this kind of development, compared to the results you've seen in the last 1 year?
Okay, yeah, you can see the last 1 year, we are still in production of wheat at 60 ton in production, when we are consuming close to 4 million tons. And now this dry season farming, which is focused on wheat, one of the most consumed grains in Nigeria, and the government is projecting at 1.2 million ton. After that is their projection. I would say that it's not what we're going to see immediately, because this is something that over the years, for the past 10 years, our production is quite low. We've been heavy on importation. And it's now that, let's say, for example, even wheat, for example, this is the first time that the government is going all out for us to have this production in this quantity. Like I said, it has been 60,000 tons. Now we're projecting 1.2 million tons. So the investment, agriculture is something like of a long-term goal. It's not what you put in today and tomorrow you are seeing the result. We are making progress in the right direction. And I will say that all I need to say is maybe we should give quite more time for us to see what happens after the harvest. It is after the harvest, and then we are not able to see the result before we can answer, okay, I think our policies, our investment is not in the right direction, and a review should be done. But I would say we're making progress in the right direction. But this is
Talking
agriculture. The
about
result is going to be quite
making
slow.
progress in the right direction, let's look at rice production, which was actually started by former President Buhari, ensuring that Nigeria is self-sufficient in rice production. Now, over the past 1 year, what significant changes do you think has happened in that sector that this administration has perhaps built on the work of former President Buhari in that aspect? Local production of rice in Nigeria.
Okay, when we look at our local production of rice, it has made tremendous impact because we were having a meeting with the treasurer of RIFAN, that's Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, last 2 weeks, and we have been able to see clearly that our production we're making progress in terms of production of rice, and also even the strengthening associations that are meant to the players in this industry. I think we're quite making quite making progress. We're making progress tremendously. We are strengthening the players in this industry. Then also FACAN. We have FACAN, Federation of Association of Commodity Traders in Nigeria. I would say that not like before, harmonizing them is quite being productive current in this administration compared to what we have before, when it's like they can do whatever they want to do. Then again, when you look at the Anchors program that was put to a halt by the current CBN governor, it's still for us to be able to address them strategically in the fund, the bottlenecks around funding, especially when we take a very critical look at the Anchors program. So in production, we are empowering. I think the current Minister of Agriculture brought this scheme. They can also drive private partnership, in essence, in terms of boosting mechanization. Because just like I was listening to the last speaker, it's talking about government creating the enabling environment, why private do the business. In business sector, private sector can drive the purchase of machines through the Ministry of Agriculture to reach out to farmers and boost productivity. Industry creating for us to have robust production to enhance the productivity of smallholder farmers in Nigeria. And I would say that we are making progress in the right direction. It's just that the result is not as fast as we want to see it, because this is agriculture. And don't forget, we have planting, the sowing time and the harvest. So we are still planting. We are still in the process. And with time, we'll be able to see what is happening so far, especially even in states like Taraba, Adamawa. There are places currently now that we are farming in Taraba State, which for the past 2-3 years, farming activities are not going on there because of insecurity. But now, because of the fight against insecurity in these areas that have been happening, farming activities is currently taking place in those areas, and I think we can make better decisions, or judgment after a period of time, after harvest, because we are still in the process. Farming activities are going on. The investment is giving gradual results, though not as we have expected, but I think we're making sense. And if you look at the framework of the Ministry of Agriculture, it's about food accessibility, stability, and access, food affordability, stability, and also access to food. This is the framework from the Ministry of Agriculture. And when you look at the policies they are executing, the strategies they are bringing, I would say they are really making progress in some directions.
All right, still talking about issues related to food crisis in Nigeria. The Minister of Agri equally said that they've released about 42,000 metric tons of assorted food from National Food Reserve to cushion the effect of the food crisis in Nigeria. As someone who has been watching development in the last 1 year, would you say this has made any impact on tackling the food crisis in Nigeria?
Okay, I'll try to be objective. it's a no at the moment. It's no. And the no is a very big no. Because again, it's not even a solution that I was expecting from the ministry, taken out from our food reserve. We're not talking about natural disaster that has swept the country for us to start touching our food reserve. We're only talking about, especially I would say, man-made crisis that can be tackled properly. When you talk about food, people are hoarding food, marketers are hoarding food. These are when you look at the inflation, cost of inflation in Nigeria is different from cost of inflation in other countries. Ours are more of market shock, and the market shock has to do with man. We are hoarding food due to food insecurity. Because of the insecurity, there are projections that our food production is going to reduce. Thus, for that, our supply is not, our demand is more than our supply. And so we're trying to hoard food to make it quite expensive, which is going to be more of gain, not even to the farmers, but to the middlemen who are the marketers. That is one. Then number two, based on prophecy, so-called prophecies from from the country. Again, still from the calculations, when you look at Ukraine, what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, it affects food supply in the world. We depend heavily on importation of wheat. Like I said, we are producing 60,000 tons when we are consuming close to 4 million tons. And for the first time, we are looking at production of wheat at 1.2 million, which was flagged off last year, November 2023. Okay, so which I feel we should not just cure the symptoms, but let's tackle the root cause. What are the reasons why we have market shocks in Nigeria? How can we address this market shocks? In terms of security, in terms of we have the middlemen who are hoarding food, just like what happened in Kano. The middlemen claimed that it was United Nations that asked them to store food when it was meant to be in the market. So I think it's not addressing the challenges properly, and we can go back and revert that. And again, when you also look at one of the challenges we're going to talk about are bottlenecks. Every intervention from the federal government of Nigeria always have bottlenecks. There are people. We have the bureaucracy around it, and this bottleneck sometimes does not even let it get to the people it is intended to. So it's not actually addressing the problem. Rather, we are creating room for wastage when we don't even have enough.
All right. At the same time that the government announced that there was going to be release from the National Grain Reserve, the central bank also announced donation of 2.15 million bags of fertilizers to support farmers. One of the reasons why there is food scarcity is because of low yield. Now, using fertilizers to boost this, isn't it enough to just donate fertilizers? Isn't it time we also have trainings for farmers regarding the use of some of these fertilizers? And there have also been partnerships between Nigerian government and some countries like Brazil in terms of provision of modern farming equipment for these farmers. What can you say about these steps, this contribution towards farming or towards agriculture in Nigeria, and what more needs to be done for food security?
All right, so I want to address this quickly. CBN should take themselves out of financing. We have Bank of Agriculture, and the primary purpose of Bank of Agriculture is to provide agricultural loan facilities to farmers. And now, so when you look at the donation, like I said, just like the Agro program, it has its gap. And I think we have not been able to sit down to analyze this gap and see why it was not able to give us the desired results we expected. That is one. Now, when it comes to training, our farmers, the knowledge gap of the skill in modern day farming among our smallholder farmers is very, very wide. And when you talk about partnership with countries like Brazil, maybe even other countries, when it comes to training, so far so good, the ministry train more of their internal staff compared to training smallholder farmers. So when you look at our budget, a lot of funding goes into it, and this training will also to the farmers. So that is one. Training in Nigeria is quite low, and this is very important so that they're going to apply this fertilizer in the right proportion. Sometimes we have challenges when when we're engaging smallholder farmers. You see, they have a method they want these things to run, even without reading the instructions on how to apply this, on how to apply fertilizer, how to apply pesticide, herbicides. Now, we need to do more of education training for our smallholder farmers. So the CBN intervention should also let us look at the structure on which these interventions are going. The bottlenecks are too much. Now, when we get to use the Bank of Agriculture, again, I want to advocate for Bank of Agriculture because it seems like this sector is just created, then abandoned, not to function properly. So we have too much agency. Now that at the end of the day, we are going to be having like conflict of functionality. So we have Bank of Agriculture, we have NISAL Microfinance Bank, and all of these things, all of these agencies, and all of these financial institutions tend to be doing the same thing, now causing us to have little result because of too many. If you look at our national budget, a lot of our over a very good chunk of our budget goes to recurrent expenditure because we have too many agencies, too many organizations, federal government organizations that are doing the same thing, giving us little results. So if we're going to look at interventions, we're talking about other countries in terms of mechanization, in terms of input, we must start addressing a lot of organizations that is making us have too many hands, little food to show for it as our result.
All right, let's look at the global disruption that happened to the supply chain, internationally, talking about the impact of the Russian-Ukraine war, the crisis at the Suez Canal, then the impact on the Nigeria, economy, and also the food supply chain in Nigeria. Paint to us a picture of how it has affected the supply chain in Nigeria. And would you say we're taking advantage of maximizing this opportunity to look at homegrown solutions or perhaps create alternatives that could help Nigeria, manage the effect or the aftermath of this disruption?
Yes. So, like I said, wheat. Like I said earlier, wheat is a very good grain, that a very good example of a grain that we are so much rely on importation in this country. And Russia and Ukraine are top 10 countries producing this crop. And in fact, Ukraine is one of our major suppliers. And it has affected, because of the destruction that it has affected, it has affected our own our supply chain, our demand in our country. Now, this was what necessitated the Ministry of Agriculture to boost production of wheat. And the projection is for us to produce 1.2 million tons by the end of 2024. Well, like I said, this is progress in the right direction. Before now, we're producing 60,000 tons. So initially, the thought was like maybe our soil or our weather is not good for this production. However, for production, and then we can do it in some good number of states in Nigeria. But because we have solely relied on importation, we have not been able to harness these opportunities. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture has also boosted the Wheat Farmers Association through FACAN. So, like I said, we have FACAN, Federation of Agricultural Commodity Associations of Nigeria, which is under the Ministry of Trade and Investment. Now, so this association, it's an umbrella body for commodity associations in Nigeria, having their membership cut across the federation. Now, this is a very good vehicle for the government to ride on, boost these commodity associations for us to be able to have high production. So I would say what is happening on the global map is also affecting us because we are basically importers. It is currently now that we started seeing the need to start growing these crops, these commodities in a larger scale. And I also still want to say a very big thank you to governors that are already taking the lead of investing heavily in machinery, especially tractors, like the governor of Niger State, which is also known as the farmers governor, Ogun State, or your state's governor. So we have most governors already keen into this, boosting the production in a large scale. The KB State governor, especially for rice production. So I would say this has also opened us up to production. However, the advocacy now is that our smallholder farmers should now transit into becoming users of machineries to boost their production, which is by farm clustering that we've already started, and I think other states are already keen to it. And that with this, we'll be able to make good boost in our own production, and especially youth participation in agriculture, which is one of the big things I'm advocating for. This is going to drive food security in the country.
All right, I'll take you back again to production, the yield at the end of the day. Now, the Minister of Agriculture, Abubakar Kyari, while talking about what President Tinubu has done in the agricultural sector over the past 1 year, mentioned that the government is taking measures to distribute 60,432 metric tons of improved seeds, 887,255 metric tons of seedlings, and 62,328 metric tons of inorganic fertilizers and equipment to farmers. Now look at some of the things that have been done. Improved seedlings and inorganic fertilizers. The distribution of this, how do you see it? Do you think those who really need it are getting it? And in terms of the utilizations of this improved seedlings and fertilizers, do you think they're being used in the proper way?
Okay, I would be trying my best to be objective so that we don't seem like we're trying to just paint the government white, but address it so that areas where we need to improve, we improve on it. When you look at the distribution, till date, our biggest challenge in the agricultural sector has been the delivery of this intervention to farmers that need it the most. The structure for this is not still effective. I will tell you, it's not still effective. And that is why I am still trying to advocate that we should make proper use of the Bank of Agriculture, so that the Bank of Agriculture become the vehicle the government is using to deliver some of this intervention. Now, when you look at the commercial banks in Nigeria, if you have financial record with them that enables you to get a particular facility, you get it. It's quite accessible. The challenge is affordability.
Internet connection keeps fluctuating, but if we can't, we would find some other time to continue the conversation with him. But before we rule that possibility out totally, let me find out from Femi. In terms of distribution, he was saying he's trying to be objective, hoping that the farmers who actually need the improved seedlings and the fertilizers, inorganic fertilizers, actually really do get them. And he would rather that the government partner with the Bank of Agriculture to reach the farmers. Do you share that sentiment?
Well, I think I would like to take us back to what used to happen in the past, where you have a station whereby you release things like this, but they wouldn't get to the actual farmers. In fact, the slogan "political farmers" was popular in the past. I can see it now, and I think it's what the ministry should also watch out for that. There are people parade themselves as farmers who are not farmers indeed. So when you talk about fertilizers, seedlings, who are being distributed, the question is to who? So they must ensure that they put in place mechanism to ensure that these things get to people who actually need it, not to party members, not to those who are the corridor of government who feel, okay, they can take advantage of that. Because you're so aware of the fact that these statements are making the public domain, and it's also important to implement them to also see how these things are being done. For instance, we talked about 42,000 metric tons of assorted fruits that were released. These food, did they actually get these food items? Did they actually get to those who needed them? So it's important, not just beyond just making statements. It's beyond
Or
that.
even releasing them. There should
Yeah,
be proper
exactly,
monitoring
to ensure
of
that these
it.
things get to those who actually need them. That's what I feel the missing gap is.
Okay. Now, while I think that the Bank of Agriculture has its role, I also know that the government has its own role to perform, else there won't be a Ministry of Agriculture. It's not of everything that it can partner with the Bank of Agriculture. In terms of access to credit, yes, they can partner with the Bank of Agriculture to make that available to farmers, particularly smallholder farmers. In terms of supporting with equipment, the Bank of Agriculture can also bankroll some of these things, but the government also has its role to do. I'm particular about extension workers because farming has improved. Now, there are different ways that farming can be done. There are research that have been conducted on how farming can be done. Even the kinds of soil that you would need to plant certain kinds of crops that will provide you yield, and the type of environment you need to condition them to. All of this information needs to be available to the farmers, not just those who have large agricultural companies, big farmers, but those farmers at the rural level. Do they understand these new techniques to farming? And also value chain. I think one thing that the government needs to put a lot of effort into is not just the production, but the value chain addition of these crops. Because we find that once it's a particular crop is off season, you don't find them in the markets and they become very expensive. So for storage, that's one area. And then for value addition, so they can be transformed into other products that can be stored or can also be used. If we want to achieve food security, first of all, we need to feed ourselves sufficiently before we talk about export. Yes, there are cash crops that can be exported, but do we also need some of those cash crops consumed locally? So I think first, satisfaction of local demand before exportation, because some of these cash crops that we export locally find their way back into the Nigerian market and they become very expensive when they eventually do. So a lot needs to be done. Yes, 1 year may not be enough to say this is it about the administration of President Tinubu, but for the review that has been done, I believe there are things that can be improved upon so that Nigerians can actually see the renewed hope. Once the belly is fed, I'm sure every Nigerian would agree that renewed hope is here.
Yeah, I also feel it's important to also strengthen mechanized farming in Nigeria. You will observe that when it comes to farming in Nigeria, it's largely left for peasant farmers.
Yes.
Who major, the reason for going into farming is to provide for their family, and that will not help the nation. I'm aware that the Ministry of Agri said last week that there's a plan to release about 10,000 tractors to farmers. So they're going to do it in phases, 2,000 per year. So that's it. It's going to take like 5 years to achieve that. So it's important to strengthen mechanized farming. And that will also encourage youth participation in agri. Rather than taking interest in entertainment, it's also important for our young people to also engage in farming. Because if you lead farming for people, older people in the rural areas, by the time age catches up on this set of people, you discover that it's going to have a large impact on farming. So governments should also see how to see ways to attract young people to participate in agriculture the way they want to participate in entertainment, make it more attractive. It's also important to address the issue of insecurity because that's largely what is affecting food production in Nigeria. You can't rule out the performance we've recorded or the lack of performance that we've had in the last few months due to the fact that the people who are in these industries, they can't eat, in fact, they can't even access their farms. Some of them, especially in the northeast region, where some of these nations, they are like the food basket of the nation, where the actual production should take place. So efforts should be made to ensure that farmers they can go to their farms and they have this sense of security. It's so important for that to be also looked into. Then the issue of logistics is very important. It's one thing for you to engage in production, but there's a disruption between the producer and those who need these products, and that's where logistics comes in. So if this can be addressed, you also discover that the global supply chain, which has been disrupted globally, will also not have large impact on Nigeria. Then it's also important to look at homegrown solutions. If we have to depend on Russia for wheat, and then it's now important for Nigeria to look inward and provide alternatives so that the global disruption will not affect the food supply chain in Nigeria.
All right, we continue tomorrow, taking a look at the performance of President Tinubu over the last 1 year. What are the economic gains? What are the areas for improvement? Discussion will continue tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. Thank you so much for watching. I am Blessing Aichi. Please do stay with Sick News because we have news, we have other programs that will greatly benefit you. And it is congratulations to Nigeria. It is not easy to sustain for 25 years democratic rule. And then we hope that there are more years to celebrate and every Nigerian can enjoy the dividends of democracy. Let's all do our part. I'm Blessing Aichi. Have yourself a great day.
All right, we want to say a special thank you to our guest, Emmanuel, for the analysis about the performance of the agri sector, and we had Mukhtar earlier. Don't forget, this conversation continues on our social media platform. You can also do a catch-up on our YouTube page. It's a special series which will continue tomorrow. It's a 25 year. We are celebrating 25 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria. Let's see what we can do to sustain democracy, because the worst of democracy is better than the best of military rule. It's important that we join hands together on a day like this to make Nigeria a better place. I am Femi Ayodele. I'll see you for another round of the special tomorrow.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.